what would be some of the practical strategies you would like to share with our listeners that could help them in resolving conflicts and disagreements while they are working on evolving their relationships, preventing the integrity, and building the trust factor between two people or amongst a group like that? Yeah.
Hmm. One thing that I think is very commonly known, but if you are clearing the air on some issue between two people, right? Any two people, again, parent, child, spouse, siblings, anything. I think it's important to state what you respect about the other person. Okay, that's one. So if I open a conversation, I will say that I know you need to find the perfect way of doing something, right? It does tire me because I don't work that way, but I really respect the fact that you can do that. Right? So to first state upfront things that you respect about each other definitely sets the tone for any conflict that you want to discuss, right? That's one. Another thing that works is to be very upfront about what are the red flags. So for example, let's say I don't like loud when people raise their voice, right? But my mother raises her voice very easily. So for me to tell her that, okay, we need to have a fruitful discussion because I'm unhappy and you're unhappy. But what hijacks our conversation is when you raise your voice. So whenever you raise your voice, I'm going to show you or, like kind of point out to you that, okay, you're raising your voice. That makes me uncomfortable. So please don't. Same way you tell me, what is it that I do? So she might say you get defensive and that really bothers me. So don't get defensive. When you get defensive, I'm going to point out that you're getting defensive. So I think you've already established mutual respect that, you have some things that you do that I don't like. I have some things that I don't like. And that's perfectly okay. So let's lay it out on the table. Na? Otherwise, we will never have a fruitful conversation. Right? So the first thing for me is state what you respect about the other person. Two is highlight what the red flags are likely to be that will hijack a conversation. Again, instead of saying, when you did this that day, versus saying, I feel like this when this happens, right? Because when you say you did, you're pointing a finger and people tend to step back or get defensive, right? So choice of words become very interesting. It's not about you did. Sometimes I tell my daughter, she says, if you do this, I might feel like crying. I said, yeah, but I'm not telling you to cry. It's your choice. That reaction is your choice.
Yep.
Right? So it's important to state very clearly that I felt this way when that happened, not that you made me cry. So I think, 2 or 3 of these can work depending on the context, the conversation. And, people tend to say you are very, very nice, but, so you have completely negated the value of that first sentence, right? You're very, very nice, but what? I'm not nice. So, instead of using but, use and in the space. You're very, very nice and you tend to give too much to other people and you need to give more to me. Than saying you're very, very nice, but you're not nice to me, right? It's completely changed the tone of how that conversation will be received.
Yes. Totally.
These are a few things I can think of. I hope that's what you were wanting.
Building onto this, while I'm not yet a parent, not yet married, but with my friends and some certain people I have been talking to, they have shared their experiences in raising a teenager. And even if I look back when I was a teen, the sudden change, just entering from 12 to 13 and then moving further,
Yeah.
my own behaviors were changed. And even if I sort of compare it with what I am today, my reaction to things or response to things to way back, probably let's say 12 years or 11 years back, it was very, very different.
Yeah.
Now, how can a new parent living in a nuclear setup really, if you can just lay out the sort of the relationship a parent and a teenager share with each other, and what are some of the most common issues, so that the parents who are listening to this podcast, they don't feel left out.
Yeah.
They sort of get that understanding, okay, everybody is facing this, we are not the only people out there.
Yeah. I think as a parent of a teenager myself, Pulkit, I think the biggest truth for parents bringing up teenagers is that there is an underlying eagerness to get it right. Okay? And because the world is the way it is, because of the challenges, because of the risk involved in going from here to my school because of risks of safety. It's all over the place. So there is definitely a certain, anxiety may be a big word, but there is some underlying kind of eagerness to get it right? Because I want to give them what is best. I want them to do well. I think that's something I would like to empathize with all parents who have teenagers. And that's a certain reality. I think the issues very often in teenage years in general is that my parents don't get me. Right? They don't understand what's going on in my mind. They don't understand what I like. They haven't understood that I've changed. They don't know that I'm not the same 10-year-old anymore. And then that sparks off, series of conflicts which tend to be cyclical. Many parents, I think, at least in the urban cities, are today trying to be much more friends to their kids than parents. And that's a great thing because this generation needs that. I think I'm taking your question further and also saying that I think if parents are able to genuinely be more curious about their teenage children, I think a lot of the conflict will go down. Because we feel that we've been there, we understand it. We don't understand it. I didn't grow up in the 2000s. I don't understand it, right? But I need to be curious with my child and say, okay, tell me, how does it work? What are you thinking? What did you guys fight about? Right? If I'm curious, then I have a little bit of a window into her mind. Yep. I think curiosity is really lacking with parents, to kind of, not the intention, right? Obviously everyone wants well for their children. But I think we are also running. I feel that the rush also makes a difference. But I think parents can be curious and really get into the minds of their children. Children will feel much more understood.
Seema, I have one question over here. Often our children become in a manner the reflection of what we have been doing as parents. So for children out there, from the moment they are born, the parents are the epitome of, or the way of doing things for them. Now I often listen to, and I see it in my own house with my niece, where I have myself started taking a little bit of conscious decisions around this once I realized it. But we often sort of scold them or shout on them for things that we ourselves are doing and we expect them not doing. A very simple and basic example, having screen time while having food, or continuously being on the mobile. So if you are you don't have anything to do, you are just on your mobile phone. You're not giving that child that time. Now, you talked about curiosity as a very important factor, and somewhere or the other I agree on this. But in order to cultivate that curiosity as well, you need to start communicating with the child.
Yes, absolutely.
So how can the parents really become, and going back to the point of self-awareness, how can parents really bring that self-awareness that my child is doing this thing because I used to do this, or I did this in front of him or her? So how can parents really navigate this path?
See, if a parent is on the phone all the time and then your child is on the phone all the time, honestly, it's a difficult rule to imply. As teenagers, they are going to just tell you, what are you doing?
Yep.
So role modeling is extremely important, not just between parent and child, but also between parents in a house where both parents live together. It's very important. So if I have a discussion with my husband, let's say, which is unpleasant, right? And then I'm upset and then I just sulk for 3 days. And what is my child seeing? But when my child has a bad day, I wanted to come and tell me immediately what happened. No, don't be sad, be cheerful, get over it. Right? She's going to say, but why did you sulk for 3 days? Right? So the role modeling is extremely important, I think, with this generation more than ever before. Because children are going to listen to us if they respect us, right? And if we show a two-faced parenting, there's not going to be respect for that. So definitely role modeling is very important. I also think something that kids really like to hear is, they like to see the weaknesses of a parent. And parents are very conscious to say that, we've got this, we know it all, not in an arrogant way, right? But we are thinking about it. We read lots of books on parenting. We talk to our friends. We know what to do with you. Newsflash, we don't know what to do with our children, right? But it's just between you and your child, and it's important to Be vulnerable with your kids. Tell them that, today at work was really difficult. My boss gave me a bad time and I was scared that I might lose my job. Like Papa actually got scared that, I would lose my job. And let the child see that side of you. Humanize yourself to them. And have a discussion. You'll be amazed what teenagers today know. But parents feel that we have to be a sign of strength. We have to be a sign of resilience. Of course, you are resilient. No? You are not going to cry for the next 3 days. You're sharing difficulty and you're going to job. You're going to work the next morning. So you are displaying resilience, right? But
Yes.
it's very important for children, because otherwise the children feel that they don't have permission to fail. They don't have permission to have bad days, because my parents never have bad days. How can I have a bad day? So in my case, I have shared a lot about my past as my daughter kept growing up. And some of them have shocked her, some of them have amused her. But I have opened the door that the similar story she will tell me back.
And this brings me to a very important question, which has become a practice in today's world, where parents are trying to provide a safe space for their children to come back to. As you rightly mentioned, that the parents should reflect, or should sort of reverberate what they want the kids to be sharing back.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I would like to also understand that as a parent of a teenager, how do you really navigate or manage the unexplained emotions that a child goes through during that stage? It's like at times they are at the epitome of excitement, and the
Yes.
very next second they could be, again at the epitome of being angry or irritated. So how can somebody, really navigate this path? And secondly, a second part of this question is, me as a teenager, I'm a 90s kid. I sort of somewhere of, the zillennials or the Gen Y,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
between that period.
Yeah.
Growing as a teenager, for me, this digital era was sort of, starting to boom. It was in its real nascent stages.
Yeah.
And the exposure to content at my time was still limited.
Yes.
Today, I often, what I do is, while my niece is having her YouTube time or playing games, I'm just silently observing what is she watching on the mobile. Certain content forms, really sort of get me worried. She's just not 11 years old. She's getting,
Yeah.
exposure to this. Is this right for her age? So how can, all of these things be really managed and navigated into creating that safe space that the child can come and talk to me, or the parent, that what does this mean?
So your first question about how do you navigate the extremities of the teenagers today, because some of their emotions don't make sense, some of their thoughts don't make sense. My answer to that actually is be neutral.
Okay.
Absolutely neutral. Because like I said, I don't know what it is like to grow up in this era. And if I say I know, I'm lying. Right? So I'm going to be very neutral, which is that look at you like an absolutely fresh canvas, saying that, okay, what are you painting here? How come you're so happy? What makes you so happy? Why are you so sad? Like, what does that say about you? I genuinely have conversations like this with my daughter, at least if I take my example, because I realize the moment I take a side, they don't feel listened to. And many times as teenagers, they don't want solutions, but they definitely expect neutrality. So I would say absolutely neutral listening is very, very key to navigate stuff that they think and do that makes no sense to us. So that's the first part. The second thing you said was about habits. So I know, Pulkit, many parents have many different ways of addressing this. I know a friend of mine who recently drew up a contract with their child, who's 9 years old. Yeah, saying that we keep telling you ki screen time kam karo. We say that you should get up in the morning on your own. You don't do that. But when you say, I need this computer, or, I need this particular game on the laptop or whatever, we do it. So they said, this seems very unequal. How do we fix this? So she said, okay, let's draw up a contract.
Okay.
Right? So they built and I don't know if it's the best thing or not, but what was interesting is that girl changed after that. So she said, okay, if I do this, then you will also do this. They said, yeah, absolutely, because then you've earned it. So she's keeping her own alarm and waking up. She's, limiting her screen time. She is looking to get certain marks because they've said that then you can, as a reward, you will have 1 day of no rules, right? So you can do whatever you want. So maybe that works for some children, right? Who say that, okay, I am owning my time, not my parents, right? The more rebellious ones, that might work.
Yes, yes.
Having said that, rules are important. I don't think a highly democratic parenting style works beyond a point. I think rules, certain amount of assertiveness from the parents definitely helps children, because children also want direction.
Yep.
And if we feel that when they are 10, we make them our friends and that's going to be perfect, it's not also. Right? Because children want direction. They look up to us, like you said, right? Role models. So they want direction and we should give direction. We just need to know how to be inclusive in giving that direction.
So Seema, I would like to just ask you the last two questions. And when I'm going to be asking this, I totally acknowledge the fact that parenting is a highly subjective,
Correct.
your relationship in itself. It's not easy. It's difficult. Each child is its own, individual out there.
Yes.
So my next question is, often in houses where the parents don't share a very healthy relationship between themselves, it sort of impacts and leaves scars on the child's mind, starting from the age, getting into the teenage, and then growing beyond that.
Yeah.
In building a relationship with self, let alone anybody out there, but a child somewhere or the other finds it really difficult to build a relationship with self. So how can this thing be really catered to and looked into?
So you're saying, if I have been through a traumatic childhood for whatever reason, does it kind of come out when I'm a parent with my child?
Yeah, that's at a later stage, but yeah, for even before that, it comes out in a very negative manner where I'm not able to have a relationship with myself. I sort of don't acknowledge my own, like the self-awareness part, the initial part of our conversation when we were talking. I start living in oblivion. I start neglecting things that are, really shouting at me in terms of the requirements to evolve and bridge the gaps. How can parents really be, bit aware of this thing? How can they get their child to, I won't say understand, but navigate this through? What are those, pointers to be coming over here?
I mean, I think this is a difficult one, because I think that when, let's say, our parents made mistakes, when we were growing up, they did not see it as mistakes.
Okay.
Right? They did what they knew best at that point of time. And that's why the whole point of, I have anger against my parent for doing this, for doing that. They had their story then, they made those choices. It didn't suit you, right? It was traumatic for you. But the same parents are not going to come back and say, our behavior had this impact on you. Now I think you need to work on yourself, and hold a mirror to them. It's not going to happen. Because I feel if our parents knew better, then why would they have put us through trauma? Because they loved us. They did not want us to go through trauma.
That's true. That's
right?
true.
So I think the point of saying, will my parent at some point kind of hold that mirror for me and help me to say that, okay, now, whatever is past now. I don't think that happens. Unless in very extreme cases where the trauma is very evident, right? Like abuse and, that whole part. In terms of, I go back to what I said in terms of saying that as an adult today, if I'm conscious enough and to say, my parents had an unhealthy relationship and I have a chance to correct that with the next phase in my life, if it is within my control, then you should do it yourself. Otherwise, I have to say therapy has been very, very effective in cases like that. And we should not hesitate to go out and reach. It is asking for help, right? Because I want to be my fullest self. And on my own, in my mind, I don't seem to have enough ways to navigate this. So I need help from the outside.
Got it. So Seema, this brings me to the final question of this conversation. If you would have to summarize in what are some of the practices or rituals that families can follow to foster trust, respect, and open communication in nurturing a healthy parent and teenager relationship, what would be those practices and rituals?
I'm glad you asked this, because actually I was talking about something similar with my daughter, and she had a very interesting idea, which I think makes a lot of sense, that, if parents and their teenagers can sit for an hour, maybe once a month, and say, for the next 1 hour, you tell us everything that you have been up to. Okay. What you think is wrong, what you think we will think is wrong, right? If you come clean, we will not punish you for it. There are no repercussions for it. But we just want to know, right? It might be a much safer space for kids to say that, yeah, I did this, I cheated in that exam, whatever kids do, right? Teenagers do. It's a nice way to understand your kid. And you're promising the kid that you're not going to be punished for being who you are. So I think that's a nice exercise where, actually families can try to open up if they are not used to kind of being very honest with each other for whatever reason. It's a nice exercise to do. So, like a truth or dare, between parents and teenagers. Right? Let me also ask the parents some questions and let's see, you give me the truth. And I think that really will open up doors in a fun way. There's another activity a friend of mine used to do with her kids, which she called Roses and Thorns, which again I recommend to some of the parents I work with, which is that at the end of the day, if you sit together with family and eat, go around the table, whoever is there, and say, share one rose of your day, which is whatever went well, right? And one thorn of the day, whatever hurt you, right? So the kids find it very unthreatening to say that, the teacher got the class to stand up and clap for me because I did well in this subject, or I did well in this piece of art that I painted, right? That's a rose. A thorn could be that this person actually bullied me today, or, the teacher shouted at me because I didn't do my homework and I didn't feel nice about it. And that's all. You're not asking to further give advice. Ki, Arey, tumhe to homework karna chahiye. Why didn't? No, it is just for sharing. And the parents also share that. The kids also share that. It's just a very non-threatening way of sharing, but you definitely open possibility of trust and, better bonds between parents and children.
Amazing, amazing. And I believe it's never too late to start with anything, and let alone teenage parents. But I believe anybody who is a parent with their children can start with this thing. Even I believe spouses can start doing this thing amongst themselves as well.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Because the time is limited, but the needs are the same.
With the Seema, I guess we would be concluding our conversation for today.
Thank you.
Any thoughts, final thoughts you would like to share with our audience?
And as a coach myself, I feel that, the level of maturity today amongst youngsters is far higher than was, when we were their age. And I think that more credit needs to be given to, youngsters for what they know, what they want to do. And we should not hold on to anxieties of saying, will they be right or wrong, or, will they fail? Because the opportunities are just so much today. There's a space for everyone in this world. And that's what I believe, for every kind of person, for every kind of child. So we should have that faith.
Amazing. So listeners, thanks a lot for going through this episode with us. And if you have any questions or follow-up questions specifically, please feel free to DM us or send us a comment on any of our channels where you're listening this podcast. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Seema, for
Thank you so much, Pulkit. This was really nice.
Great. So listeners, stay tuned for more episodes on different topics. Thank you.